Hello and welcome to Right to Choose. I am Dr. Iana Harris, and this is my girl, Christine Cooper.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so we're going to get to it. In case this is your first time joining us, Christine and I are talking about the aftermath of abortion. And if you can't see us, if you're on a podcast, you will see that we are two African American females, two Black females who have both suffered the pain of abortion. And so we have commissioned and been commissioned to talk about it, to talk about our abortion stories, to talk about how it's affected us, to talk about different pieces of it. And so as we continue to interact with you, who knows what the next conversations will be. But today, we're going to talk about abortion in the family unit, talk about the shame, talk about the not talking about it, talk about
Yes.
So that's what we're going to talk about. Christina and I have talked so much over the years, and one of the conversations that we keep having is specifically the Black community and our history, our story, our silence,
Right.
our whatever concerning abortion. And so, Christine, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I know for me, it was very disheartening to find out that after I had had an abortion, that I found that there were so many other women, in my immediate family that had also had abortions that did not share that information with me proactively in the midst of my current, unplanned pregnancy, so that I could understand how that choice not only affected their lives, but to give me more of an insight of how that choice could truthfully and honestly affect my own life. And it baffled me to find out immediately following that there were two women in my immediate family that had had an abortion. But then as years went on, I found out that there were more. And I just, and what's crazy is even after finding out that there were abortions, there was still no conversation. It was just kind of like, well, here you go. Now you know, but there wasn't any dialogue concerning what had happened to them.
Right. Right. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that one, there wasn't the pre-conversation, but two, there wasn't the, okay, now you know, let's talk about how it affected me. Do you think it's more of a like, I don't want to talk about it? Do you think it's the shame? Do you think it's the, we don't talk about that stuff? Like, what do you think?
I think it's probably all of the above. And I also think because as Black women, we are considered to carry so much strength, right? And we're kind of like we do what needs to be done, type of person.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of those conversations haven't happened because they truthfully saw it in the moment of them choosing abortion as this is just what needs to be done. It was just another level of them living lives of what needs to be done. They do it, they move on from it, and they continue living. And so I think that is what kept the conversation from even coming up because it was no option, and based on whatever their circumstances were.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So when you were talking of literally what I just wrote down, so I wouldn't forget because I'm old. So I wonder how many of these, if we like traced the conversations, how many of these women made these choices in absence of a father, like them
Right.
a father and or them having a father of that child to be present for those conversations. The priest, provider, protector element is so powerful and many times so absent in our communities. And then even when there is the father who is present, because I know your father was present for the decision, then
Right.
I've witnessed and had many conversations with men who feel like they can't have a say in what a woman does with her body because that's a woman's body and I can't tell her what to do. I hear you, and I'm gonna push the controversy button, but
Me too.
several pieces. One, when a woman has decided in her mind that she's going to terminate a pregnancy, many times she decides that in absentia of a man. Like she doesn't consider him. I've dealt with so many women who don't consider the man because it's their body, but the man is also the father of that child.
Right.
And so we many times will rob them of the opportunity to father. They are childless fathers out here, and we aren't even consulting our own fathers many times. I know my father found out on my way to the clinic.
Mm.
And that's a whole different conversation of how we handle our relationships with the father-daughter relationship and the presence or absence of fathers, and how, here's one for you. If she had the baby, guess what we were going to ask for? Child support.
Right.
You ask a man to pay child support for a child that he created, but you didn't ask him for his input or conversation. And I'm not saying that's everybody's story, but not everybody's asking for input or conversation from the father of this child because it's my body, I do what I want.
Yeah, and I think also it could come down to the act of sex itself with
Mm,
that person. It was permissible obviously to have sex with you, but do they feel as though do they feel security, I guess, in
mhm.
your fathering ability, whether you
Ooh,
are a current father or not, you
mhm,
know, and that also might press them to
mhm,
kind of eliminate them from the decision making process. For me, it's like as you're talking, I'm literally thinking back and I'm like, me and the father of my son never even had a conversation. I
wow.
mean, it literally, we never had a conversation at all. I know that we both were on spring breaks like you. And so he was out of town, and there was conversations with my parents saying that they were communicating with his parents, but there was no conversation between he and I about, well, do you want our baby? How do you feel about being pregnant with our child? If me and vice versa, how do you feel about me being pregnant with our child? But there was a lot of conversation between his best friend and I about how um he had a life to live, and
Ooh,
he had this future that he had to get to, and he doesn't need a baby right now. And I'm looking at him like, this doesn't even concern you, for one, and for
mm,
two, the fact that you could say that is really upsetting me and annoying me,
mm,
because if anything, that statement, all it did was make me more unsure.
mm,
And his opinion, honestly, was one that did not matter. So why is my choice now being um I feel like ill affected by an opinion that's unimportant. It's just
yeah,
unimportant.
it's
And so
irrelevant.
it's irrelevant. That's the word. Thank you. It
Mhm.
is irrelevant. It
Wow.
is irrelevant. But back to like our families. So after I had my abortion, I felt very alone. Like I felt like nobody in my household understood what I was going through, right? Like
Right.
nobody understood. And so I actually positioned to go live with my father in New Jersey, because his wife had had an abortion around the same age that I had. So I felt like she would understand more what I was going through and could kind of help me get through this.
Mm,
Well, that is when I found out that there was an abortion in my household, let's say. And but it took me literally saying, I want to move out. I no longer want to live here because I need to be connected with somebody who can help me through this. For her to tell me, well, I've actually been through it myself. Okay, now we want to talk. It's like now you want to talk. Why couldn't we have had this conversation prior to now, where you feel like, okay, this is like a final straw for her, I have to say something? You felt backed into a corner, and that was the only reason you told me. And even in telling me, it was just to tell me that it happened again, not to have a conversation on how to help me heal through this.
Yeah, it's interesting because now, being on the other side, I have grown children, and one of my daughters got pregnant as a teenager. She got pregnant the same age I was when I got pregnant, right? And because the conversations in my own youth did not happen, okay, let's not even get to conversations about abortion, but I don't know about your family, but nobody talked to me about sex.
No. Or even relationships.
Nobody was talking about sex. No one was talking about relationships. No one was talking about what healthy relationships look like. No. What I should look for in a mate and what I should be waiting for. The most you got was from grandmothers who were saying, keep your legs closed.
Absolutely. Or if there was conversations about relationships, or what you would call little boyfriends, at the time, it was around, make sure you're not giving him money. Make sure if somebody giving money, he giving you money. Make sure he got a job. Make sure, this and that. But there weren't things of substance. And there weren't things that would help me find value in him. It was all, just silly stuff that didn't prepare me for what would happen should I have gotten pregnant.
Right.
To make sure that if I'm going to have unprotected sex, you might want to at least choose that person. Be particular about who you choose, to lay down with, not just somebody you thought was super cute. And so, hey, give it up. There was no conversation to prepare me for how to become a woman.
Okay.
That's a different situation.
This is the silence in our communities where we grew up in an era and a time where and I believe that era and time continues in many spaces, where people were not telling us and showing us healthy relationships, not showing us and telling us about our worth and our value. There was a lot of I could be grown up in a different time and space, but there was a lot of don't do's.
Right.
But not a lot of do's. Like, it wasn't telling me even why don't do.
Right.
Like, there was just a lot of don't. And do as I say.
Not as I do type
as
of.
I do,
We all know that one.
Done, a lot of that. And the lack of educating our children had put many of us in these positions, and like you said, lack of conversation. So if you're in a household and no one has talked about sex, sexuality, promiscuity, the effects of, even in school, I'll take it to the next step further. I don't know. I grew up in a place where you had that video about your body when you were like, the boys had a video and the girls had a video, and y'all had to get your parents to sign to say you could watch the video, and about your menstrual cycle. That was pretty much the end of education for me concerning that. And everything else was, I guess, OJT. And I just learned, about everything else. But the way and the things that I learned were so wrong, because I was learning it from my peers.
Right.
Even learning about abortion from my peers, not learning about it from people who could have some sort of positive conversation or impact. I have one of my relatives recently asked me, she said one of the girls and one of her daughters asked, what is abortion, because she saw, like, heard the word on TV. It was during election time, it's a buzz
Yeah.
topic. And she said, what is abortion? And the mom froze. She was like, how do I have this conversation? What am I supposed to say? And I showed up, and me, I'm like, all right, we talking about it.
Right.
Said, if you told me, that means I got the green light. And to me, I appreciated in the moment that she had wisdom enough to know, I'm not comfortable having this conversation, but I know that you are, and I need you to have this. She sat with us while having it. And honestly, I felt like she was also a student going, okay, how are we having this conversation? Because I don't know what to say, but I recognize it's important because nobody had this conversation with me. Like, me knowing pieces of her story, I knew that no one had had the conversation with her. She had early sexual relations. She was having sex outside of marriage. She had abortion, all these things.
Right.
And she didn't know, what do I say to my daughter, who at the time was 12? And a lot of people will say, well, they're too young to talk about it. Well, I've met a lot of pregnant teens at 13.
Right.
As scary as that is, but if we're not talking to them about why to keep your legs closed, or why to keep your dress down, or why not to let the boys do X, Y, and Z, or what the effects of that are, and what about talking to our sons?
Right. I'm just trying to figure out on a constant basis what is really driving the lack of conversation. Like, is it some sort of feeling of embarrassment?
Mhm.
Is it a shameful feeling? Is it, just a lack of education to be able to communicate,
Mhm.
really effectively about the topic, whatever it is? Um, but a part of me feels like the majority is embarrassment, because you can feel people almost shy away from things. There's an uncomfortability
Mhm.
that comes with it, and that might even I wonder if that state of uncomfortability is almost an admission of guilt from whatever they have experienced in their own life, that they weren't ready, to even resurface. That was one of those, it's going to go to my grave type of thing, and now you want to talk about it. No, we're not doing that type of situation.
Mhm.
um I really wonder, because
Yeah.
mathematics and reading and science and all those things can't be the only things that we teach, or
Oh.
that we allow to be taught, rather, to our kids.
Mhm.
There's still life lessons that have to be learned, and that goes far beyond learning how to cook and clean as well, or learning how to go walk the trash out to the curb or bag something up. Like, there are things relationally that need to be conversed about. And I appreciate the times that we live in now
Mhm.
so much, because I feel like the generation that is coming up is a transparent one. Like, they're
Yeah.
gonna talk about it. Like, they are going to talk about it no matter what it is.
They're gonna blog about it, they're gonna vlog about it, they're gonna talk
Right.
about it, they're gonna all of it.
All of that. All of that. But the ones raising those kids, though, is us. It's the it's the people who grew up in the we don't talk about it generation.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
it's there has to be something done to fix that, so that less people can go through trial and error. It's
Mm.
just,
Yeah.
and then also going back to abortion, more lives can be saved, because
Right.
you know
Like, how many relatives are we missing?
right, that's a great question.
How many relatives will we get to heaven and our kids be like, hey, this is Uncle so and so, this is Cohen's cousin so and so, be like, wait, what?
Right.
And
Right.
to be able to have it have all these different relationships. And it's interesting because um abortion is a generational curse. The death of children is a generational curse. the death of a lineage. It is, we're losing future sons and daughters and future fathers and mothers because of silence and fear.
Right.
And in our communities, we're afraid, we're shame. That shame is rooted in fear of judgment, fear of consequence, fear of. And it's like, bruh, you're already living in the consequences because you're living in these secret places. And many of us are living these artificial behind lives. And it's like, this isn't even real who we are because we're so busy covering all of our sin. We're covering all of our mess, covering all of our drama. And it's like, if we would just be honest and be, as the young folks say, real, and like you said, transparent, and talk about it, I think that is something that definitely is a benefit of the generation that is coming up, the Instagram, Twitter, TikTok generation. People have a lot to say about them, but I'm like, they are talking about stuff. Um, and the hard part with them talking sometimes is they're getting educated by their peers.
Right. Who are still learning, who are also uneducated.
Right.
So,
Right. It's that moment when you have to have the conversation with your son. So I have sons and daughters, and it's hard to have the conversation. And sometimes, my son is my youngest son. I'm sure he's many times embarrassed. But I hope and pray that in the future, as he becomes a man, he'll be happy that I had some really transparent conversations with him about there's more effects to sex outside of marriage, and then there's more effects than just a baby or disease. It's the soul tie. It's all of those things. Like, I need you to know all this. I need to at least have said it, because when my daughter got pregnant, one of the things that set her into a place of, I'm going to have this baby, is because she not just saw my story of how crazy stuff had been, she understood the effects and why. Like, she knew my abortion story more intimately than most of my family would have wanted her to know. Now, do I wish she wouldn't have been having sex at 15 and 16 years old? 100%.
right.
But when she got pregnant and was faced with the pregnancy, she was able to at least say, okay, this is going to be a hard conversation to have, because you have to tell your mother that you're pregnant at 16, but I know I can have this conversation with her, and I know how this outcome is, because it was the pause of, I'm pregnant, and pause and go, so we're going to the Pregnancy Resource Center on Monday. Like, she had already had these conversations. We'd had conversations, and I'm not saying that just because we talk about it that it's going to completely prevent
Right.
stuff from happening. Just because you tell people not to walk in the street during traffic time doesn't necessarily prevent them from doing so.
Right.
But you've had the dialogue, you've had the conversation, you talk about the consequences of actions, but we
Right.
about it.
Right. And I think, and just to be clear as well, for everybody that's listening, we're obviously women that are post-abortive. We have, experienced the choice of abortion. So as far as this being like a bashing session of people who experience that, this is not what this is. What this is a conversation with two post-abortive women saying that we cannot have had abortions and we don't share with another woman or another young girl about our own experiences because of some sort of rule of, you know, don't ask, don't tell, or, you know, what happens in my
Silence.
house stays in my house, or, you know, we're not doing that. That's what this conversation is about, because the necessity is to not be silent. Like, there's already been secrecy, if we're honest, especially in Niana and I's story of having sex at 15 and 16. Like, that there wasn't, you know, we weren't just walking around and people there was secrecy in that. There was secrecy in, you know, getting pregnant and going through the abortion in itself. And so now, as much more mature women, as women that have been healed now by the power and grace and love of God, it's like, okay, the secrecy now is out the window. We're having this conversation. So that's really what it's about, you know. And we would encourage you all that if you're listening and you yourself has had an abortion, like, it's time to share that with the people in your life, because you honestly don't know who your story is going to affect.
Girl,
you just don't know.
You have no idea. You have no idea the power and that confession has. It really does. And I think that is just a very powerful space to end this conversation. I have a feeling we'll come back around to the conversation of how abortion affects the family unit, how silence affects the family unit. It's important, and that's legitimately the foundation of why we're having these conversations, to talk about it.
Like, exactly.
About it.
Exactly. And you can't undo what you've done by not talking about it. That isn't going to change what you've already done, is by keeping it silent. So if it's not going to change it, then let's use our voices to make the future better for somebody.
Sis, that's it. Yeah. So if you're listening, if you're watching and you have experienced the pain of abortion, you know someone who has, you want to talk about it, please reach out, breakfreeabortionhealing@yahoo.com. Look for our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, on Anchor, on iTunes, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and look for us. Like us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, however that goes these days. I when I say stuff like that, but we appreciate you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Mrs. Christine Cooper. I'm Dr. Iana Harris, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yes, we will.